For Telesur, I'm Cody Weddle in Caracas. The new 5-day truce between Israel and Palestinian leadership in Gaza is holding, despite earlier signs of tensions. Israeli warplanes bombed Gaza, which Israeli officials say was in response to 8 Hamas rockets fired in Israel. Hamas denied responsibility. No casualties were reported on either side. Hamas leaders say there is real opportunity for a lasting truce, but that the 7-year blockade on Gaza must be lifted before any agreement is reached. Here's our Gaza correspondent, Noor Herzine. We're going to move on, actually. While political strife continues in Iraq, the armed forces that had occupied the country following the 2003 invasion are once again ramping up their military involvement. According to the State Department, the U.S. has conducted 24 airstrikes against extremists from the Islamic State, also known as ISIL. Today, Britain's trade envoy to Iraq confirmed that the UK's Special Forces Regiment was deployed 6 weeks ago. The British forces are gathering intelligence alongside U.S. troops and military advisors. This week, France also confirmed that it is arming Kurdish fighters in Iraq's north. And to Latin America now. Venezuela attempts to tighten border security. It follows meetings between Venezuela and Colombia discussing controlling the flow of contraband. The Simón Bolívar Bridge between the neighboring countries is one of the most complex border crossings on the continent. It provides the main exit point for heavily subsidized Venezuelan goods crossing into Colombia to be sold for big profits. The governments of both countries say the smuggling is damaging to both economies. For more on this, we go to our Colombia correspondent, Charles Parkinson.
Buenas tardes.
We're having some trouble with that report. We're going to move on. Mourning in Brazil today following the death of prominent political and presidential candidate Eduardo Campos. Campos, the leader of the Brazilian Socialist Party, was among 7 on board a private jet when it crashed into a residential district of Santos in Sao Paulo state. It remains unclear what caused the plane to crash. Emergency crews continue searching through the wreckage to identify bodies.
Nós entramos em contato com a base aérea aqui de Santos e eles informaram que havia expectativa da chegada de uma aeronave por volta das 10 horas da manhã, vinda do Rio de Janeiro.
Born in Recife in 1965, Eduardo Campos comes from a long line of family members involved in Brazilian politics. Campos served as Minister of Science and Technology under Lula da Silva. An economist by trade, Campos led the Brazilian Socialist Party and positioned himself as a left-leaning but business-friendly politician. Campos had been polling 3rd in the upcoming presidential elections with about 15% of the vote. The former governor of Pernambuco state leaves behind his wife and 5 children, including a 6-month-old son. The Inter-American Commission of Human Rights releases a damning report card on the state of human rights in Honduras. The report signals Honduras as the country with the highest homicide rates in the hemisphere, with 79 murders per 100,000 people last year. According to the organization's commissioner, Felipe Gonzalez, policies to address the country's problems have been minimal. The commission drew links between poverty, violence, and migration in the region. According to the World Bank, 7 in 10 Hondurans live in poverty. Police in Ferguson, Missouri fired tear gas at protesters late Wednesday in the 4th night of demonstrations over the shooting of an unarmed black teenager by police. 18-year-old Michael Brown was shot to death on Saturday in a police car. Witnesses say Brown had raised his arms to police before the officer fired the shots. 2 journalists from the Washington Post and Huffington Post were arrested and later released on Wednesday as tensions between police and the press remain high. Somalia's president met with UN Security Council ambassadors on Wednesday in the capital of Mogadishu. Somalia's government is set to begin a new offensive against the country's al-Shabaab militants. As the offensive is set to begin, UN figures show the country may be on the brink of another famine. The UN-backed government has made headway against al-Shabaab. Despite that, the group continues to stage attacks against the government as well as African Union troops. Among the issues discussed with the ambassadors was the country's political problems, including the holding of a constitutional reform referendum prior to the 2016 elections. Canada will donate between 800 and 1,000 doses of an experimental Ebola vaccine to the World Health Organization for use in Africa. The vaccine was developed in government laboratories. It has not yet been tested on humans, but has been cleared by the World Health Organization for use. Canada is also considering sending doses of the vaccine for animals, but says it could take 4 to 6 months to produce a large quantity. Former Egyptian leader Hosni Mubarak was back in court on Wednesday to refute accusations that he ordered the murder of 850 protesters in Tahrir Square during the 2011 Egyptian uprising. Mubarak was originally sentenced to life imprisonment last year, only to later be freed on those charges. He is currently serving a separate 3-year sentence for embezzlement. Mubarak ruled Egypt from 1981 until he handed power to the army in February 2011. It came after mass protests erupted calling for an end to his reign. A Russian convoy of 280 vehicles has reached the Ukrainian border but will likely not be permitted to enter the conflict zone. The Ukrainian government has sent its own aid convoy of 75 trucks to the besieged area. Meanwhile, fighting continues in Ukraine with at least 22 civilians killed following Ukrainian bombings in the city of Lugansk. According to the United Nations, the Ukrainian offensive has left over 2,000 dead and 5,000 wounded since April. The UN now classifies the humanitarian situation there as critical. The verdict of a suspension appeal by one of soccer's biggest stars will be released today. Uruguayan forward Luis Suarez appealed his ban to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. During a World Cup match, video footage caught Suarez biting another player. Following the incident, Suarez was suspended for 9 competitive international games and from all football-related activity for 4 months. It marked the 3rd time that the former Liverpool star had bitten an opposing player. Suarez has signed with Spanish giants Barcelona in this offseason. As always, we have more on those stories and others at our website. Hope you'll check it out. telesurtv.net/English. For Telesur English, I'm Cody Waddle.